Imagine having a near-death experience and suddenly finding yourself somewhere that feels more real than this reality. You might encounter loved ones who have died, experience a life review, or be told that it isn't your time and you have to go back. And when you return, you might no longer feel like the same person you were before. Your priorities change. Your fear of death disappears. You may feel like you've remembered something about your life and its purpose. There's a reason for that. A near-death experience isn't simply an experience of getting close to death. It's an opportunity to temporarily expand beyond the limited physical perspective and glimpse the greater reality that you exist within all the time. You don't really travel somewhere else. You become aware of something that was already there. And in some cases, something even more extraordinary happens. Some people who believe they nearly died actually did die. The version of them in that reality died, and they chose to continue their physical experience in a parallel reality or timeline where they survived. From their perspective, their life simply continued. This can happen when there seems to be almost no possibility you could have survived what happened, or you somehow walk away without a scratch when there would normally be catastrophic injuries. So what is actually happening during an NDE? Why do some people come back profoundly changed? Why are some told they have to return? And what does all this tell us about the nature of reality? I'll also share a pretty intense NDE I experienced when I was 16 and what happened afterward that changed the course of my life because of it. But first, we need to understand something fundamental about the nature of consciousness. Consciousness isn't inside your body. It's the other way around. Your body is a projection of your consciousness. You never actually left the spirit realm in the first place. You are naturally a non-physical being, and physical reality is an experience you're creating within your consciousness by focusing only a small portion of your awareness into the physical person you know as you. When you experience a physical life here in this space-time reality, you narrow your focus so completely that while you're here, this identity feels like all that you are, but it's actually only a tiny part of you. During a near-death experience, that intense focus on physical reality temporarily loosens, and your awareness expands beyond the personality you've spent your entire life identifying as yourself. You're not becoming something else. You're simply becoming aware of more of who you already are. And this completely changes what we mean when we say someone went to the other side. You don't actually travel anywhere because you never left being in spirit in the first place. It's already here. Physical reality is just a densified expression of spirit. An NDE simply allows you to temporarily become aware of a level of reality that your physical senses normally prevent you from experiencing. That's why it can feel like waking up from an incredibly convincing dream. During the experience, the physical world is no longer the only reality you can perceive, and you get a glimpse of what you actually are beyond it. Once your awareness expands beyond that physical focus, the experience itself can take many different forms. Some people encounter loved ones who have died. Some encounter guides. Some experience a tunnel or light, while others find themselves in environments that seem every bit as real as the physical world. And time itself can behave very differently. An experience that seems to last many hours or days from the perspective of the person having it can occur within only moments of physical time. But why can two people have near-death experiences that seem completely different? Because when you experience something beyond physical reality, your physical mind has to translate that experience into something it can understand. It uses familiar images, symbols, and ideas to represent information that doesn't necessarily have a physical form. So one person may see Jesus, another may see a loved one, another may encounter beings of light, while someone else experiences something entirely different. The imagery also reflects the belief systems and expectations that person brings into the experience. That doesn't mean the experience isn't real. It means the way the experience is perceived is unique to the person having it. Underneath those different images, what they experience is real. How their mind translates it is personal. For some people, another part of the experience is what's commonly called a life review. Sometimes an entire life, and sometimes a focus on one specific part of that life. But this isn't a judgment of whether you were good or bad, and no one is standing there deciding whether you passed or failed. The purpose is to understand the choices you made and the effect those choices had, not only on you, but on the other beings involved. And this is very different from simply remembering your life. The usual separation you experience between yourself and another person is no longer there in the same way. You can experience your choices from both your perspective and theirs, including how your words and actions affected them. You can see the ripple effects those choices created and even the consequences of things that didn't happen because of them. And because in that state, you're no longer bound by linear time, the experience of a life review happens instantaneously. It's simply known. Certain moments can seem longer because your consciousness is focusing on them, but an entire lifetime can essentially be understood in the blink of an eye. When the life review happens in an NDE, you're being given that understanding now because you're going back. You aren't being shown your life so you can be judged for it. You can take what you learned from seeing your life from this much broader perspective and use it in the life you're about to continue, giving you a more expanded understanding of the life theme you chose to explore. And this brings us to one of the most important questions. Why do you come back? If you've just expanded beyond physicality and experienced yourself beyond physical identity, why return to the constraints of physical reality at all? Because the NDE itself can serve as a reset, a type of reboot. It can happen at a point in your life when that expanded perspective gives you an opportunity to remember why you're here and what you chose to explore. It can offer a course correction. This is why some people are met by guides or loved ones and told that it isn't their time yet. There are still experiences or agreements they chose to complete as part of their life theme, and the NDE gives them an opportunity to return to their life with a very different understanding of it. And this is why so many people come back profoundly changed. They may lose their fear of death, change their priorities, feel a much stronger sense of purpose, or begin living in a way that's far more aligned with what they now understand to be truly important. They haven't simply survived something traumatic. They've been given a glimpse beyond the physical perspective and then brought that awareness back into the life they chose to continue. This also brings us back to something we touched on earlier. In some near-death experiences, You didn't almost die. You actually did. You were then given the choice to remain in spirit or continue in physical life in a parallel reality so similar that you wouldn't even know you'd shifted. This is why there are cases where someone knows there is simply no reasonable way they could have survived what happened. From their perspective, they somehow escaped death, but they didn't escape it. They chose to continue. Why would you actually die in one reality and then choose to continue in another? Because the experience itself can be part of the reset. It can give you the opportunity to continue life on a completely different trajectory. You might choose to continue exploring the theme you originally chose from a completely different direction. Or, if your original life theme had been completed, you may choose to remain in this physical life and begin exploring a new one. This is a perspective that Bashar has shared in many transmissions. So what does all this actually tell us about the nature of reality? An NDE gives us a glimpse of what exists beyond the very narrow range of reality we normally perceive. It shows us that our physical identity is one small part of the greater consciousness of who we really are. And because our physical body is a projection of our consciousness, when that physical focus loosens, even temporarily during an NDE, we can become aware of how much more expansive and multidimensional our reality really is. It shows us how flexible time really is when we're no longer bound by it in this dimension of space-time. An entire lifetime can be understood in an instant, and even the continuity of your life isn't as fixed as it appears to be. You can die in one reality and continue in another, with no break in your experience at all. From your point of view, you survived. From the larger perspective, you simply continued your physical experience through a different version of reality, none the wiser. When I was a teenager, I had an NDE experience that only made sense to me much later in life. I was around 16, growing up in England, and my parents had one of those old-fashioned drink trolleys filled with different kinds of alcohol for when we had guests. Rum, gin, vodka, brandy, whiskey, all sorts of things. I knew almost nothing about alcohol beyond the occasional hard cider. And in that ridiculous act of teenage stupidity, I took an empty 1-liter bottle and started pouring about 2 inches from each bottle on the trolley into it. When I finished, I was about 3/4 full of that 1-liter bottle. I had no idea what to do with it, so I buried it in the garden. I know. What was I thinking? Several months later, I was meeting some friends to go out on a Saturday night to a nightclub in Newcastle. I remembered the bottle, I dug it up, and for some crazy reason, chugged down more than half of it. I have no idea what possessed me to do it. I got on a bus, went upstairs in the bus, and within about 15 minutes, I started violently vomiting. I remember moving seats, vomiting again, moving seats, vomiting again. Luckily, no one else was up there. I stumbled off the bus at the next bus stop and somehow made it home, losing my shoes somewhere along the way. No one was home. I went to my bedroom, closed the door, and got under my duvet cover. By this point, the dizziness and disorientation were really frightening, petrifying. I couldn't even close my eyes because the spinning was unbearable. And then suddenly, I felt my body starting to go cold. Everything went very still. I remember wondering what would happen when my parents found my body, but even that thought started becoming very distant. And then suddenly, everything disconnected. My life felt like a distant memory that was rapidly fading. I found myself suspended in a space that felt black, but somehow not black, and it felt empty yet very alive. It was a very peaceful suspension, and I had this strange sense that I was expected to do something. I wondered what was supposed to happen next, and in response to that thought, I saw a tiny pinpoint of light. The closer it came, the more I felt my focus lock onto it. And then suddenly it became much larger and brighter, and it felt like this incredibly powerful magnet pulling me toward it, like being sucked into a vortex at lightning speed. And suddenly, I woke up in bed. What had felt like a moment was about 12 hours. I sat up and I felt wonderful. I looked a mess, but felt fantastic. Ready for breakfast, ready to meet friends to go shopping later. No hangover, no nausea, no headache, no stomach issue, no tiredness, nothing. No physical symptoms whatsoever of what had happened. In fact, I felt amazing. At the time, the aftermath struck me as very strange, but all I could do was feel incredibly relieved. I knew I was very lucky. That day, I bought a book called Seth Speaks, channeled material by Jane Roberts. It completely altered the course of my life. And that brings me to what I think the most important thing about an NDA can teach us. It isn't about death at all. It's about how we choose to live. If you can step outside this physical focus, see your life and your choices from perspectives you couldn't see before, remember the theme you chose to explore, and then come back and continue that life, we don't actually need an NDA to experience this shift. We can begin expanding our awareness now by understanding more about how reality actually works and becoming more aware of the greater consciousness that we actually are. Remember, this physical identity that feels like all of you is actually only a tiny fraction of your consciousness. It's a frequency band. And the more aware you become of your greater self, the more you can experience frequencies beyond this physical range. Physical reality is a dream your greater self is having. And the more you become aware of this, the more lucid you become within that dream. And with that, we'll bring this to a close. Thank you so much for joining me in this exploration. Questions or comments are always welcome. I do read them all. And I've also left a question in the pinned comment for any insights you'd like to offer. If this sharing resonates and you'd like to hear more, please hit the like button. It helps me know if you're inspired by my teachings. For more insights, tap the notification bell to be notified when new videos are released. Thank you so much for listening and for being part of this beautiful, growing community where the edge of what we call death can reveal so much about what it really means to be alive. Superhuman made simple with the architect.